Last time it was as bad as it is now. It was in the Perm area, and at that time it is looked as if there was a huge eruptions of volcano at that period, and that put up this carbon in the air and to higher. It was 700 to 800 ppm. It is now we are on 390. It is a measurement of CO2 in the atmosphere. And at that time, there was virtually no ice. They're still discussing if there was some ice above the highest peaks on the South Pole, but all ice was melting at that time on the globe, and that meant that it was very humid, a lot of carbon in the air, and that means that what's good for that? High temperature, what's good for that? That's good for some kind of plants, you know. So the plant system on the globe exploded, even in the oceans, some of it, but and then what happened was that they grew up and grew. It was just before the dinosaurs came in, and then and then that's all the plants now from that time that we are misusing. That's all the fossil fuel we had. That's all the carbon. That's all the coal. That's all the gases. That's all the oil that we now are extracting. It originates from that period, about 40 million years ago. So that's if we look at it, and we might be into the same period, the same kind of period. The ice are melting now. It's in rapid racing speed. Every week we see that it breaks new records and things like that in the papers. So what we can do is, at that time, the globe, the natural system reacted by growing plants, more and more, bigger and bigger, faster and faster, and that we can, and we have to duplicate that. I mean, that's the only way out. I mean, there are a lot of technical fixes around. They say they can do it. They can preserve the carbon. They can extract the carbon, put it down in the deep down in the soils and things like that. But there's no use for carbon down there. I mean, it's ridiculous to put it deep. Carbon works, you know, in the upper 1 or 2 meters in the soil. That's where it works. That's where it's good for bacteria. That's very good for algae. That's very good for all kind of insects and worms and stuff like that. It's no use further. But when it comes up there, and it's good for all that life, you know, it produces a lot of plants too. Eventually it comes up, you know, all kind of grasses, all kind of trees and bushes is coming up that way. And that's how it reacted at that time. In Perm time, that's how the natural system reacted at that time. And that we have to implement that system again. And now we are humans, we are now a species here where we can do analysis, where we can teach each other, where we can see what's happening. So therefore, we have this advantage now that we can speed up this process. So it's nothing naturally in doing that, but because that's just how nature works, you know, and that's what's good from the start of from permaculture. It was started from people who was extremely good in analyzing what's happening in nature. Actually, based on studies of what happens in desert. It's based on studies what's happening in forests, and that's the basic of permaculture. So therefore, we have to continue that tendency and develop it further, to do studying further. And the funny thing is that we have tried, I mean, this material here, we have tried to get scientists interested, but they don't care. I mean, when I started, there was story in a paper some months ago here in Denmark where we were in a group who have studied it. And when the scientists, when they see it, they get blank eyes, you know. When we start talking about things like that, they're getting blank eyes, you know. And I think it's because it's too cross-sector. I mean, it's very difficult for them to take. There's scientists, you know, for soil, there's scientists for trees, there's scientists for water, there's scientists for energy, all different kind of energy. But this concept, you know, of looking at the whole carbon cycle, of the whole biological system, they can't conceive that. So it's naturally I don't know, you know, you heard the big panel discussion here the other day, you know, and we were somebody who asked Stefan and Nicholas and we asked questions about forest and forest reaction to that, and they didn't understand what we were saying. The failure they couldn't understand. They don't know forest. I mean, forest is trees. Forest take up sun, but they don't know the picture of forest, the whole system of forest and how it works. You know. So, and there's only very few foresters who actually does that too. So therefore, it's a problem to get it to get it build further along and to get understand. But we are collecting messages and we are collecting. There are some who work together with us, so we can do it, but they are not present here. But that means that we have to, if we have to do that, if we have to develop a new system, a plant system, a globally plant system who's dominating the whole earth, and that's what needs for. If we have to stop this eruption that is going on, then we have to make the globe into a total plant system. And that means that we have to work, you know, mostly in the first 2 or 3 meters of the soil, and we have to get it green. So we said, how can we do that? There are about 200 to 300 permaculture centers around the world who have capacities of developing themselves. There are some centers in Africa, there are some in India, there are centers who are able to, who work bioregionally, as we call it, who work to have a school, who have the capacity of educating further people, who are spreading and who have the capacity of actually who actually have the capacity of developing new centers. So and that's and therefore we said if there are centers like this, there are permaculture centers, but there are a lot of other kinds of centers. There are environmental groups who work like that. We have had earlier we had good company with groups, even Danish aid organizations who were interested in developing centers like this. We had a broad perspective who worked with appropriate technology, who worked with nurseries, who worked with developing of forest in their regions. So we said that if such centers could be developed, often these centers are striving, have a hard time. They have to get various kind of funding. They're fighting for funding. They're fighting to survive. They have unsecure funding. Sometimes they have to stop, you know, teaching. They have to stop doing developing work because they don't have to fight to get their own food, just to stay alive. And as long as the situation is such a very unsecure situation. But people looked at if we could get this kind of center funded steadily and sufficiently, so they are able to develop themselves. We talked about that they could double themselves in a period of 2 to 3 years if they get steady funding for that. And that means that they could spread really fast. And that meant we thought about that within the next 20 years we would be able to, with this kind of development, we would be able to plant up to